Gemar Chasim Tov to everybody. We began the new parak the other day. We began the new parak the other day. I think it behooves us to go over the Mishnah. Let's start again, since we may not remember it. So we're up to the seventh parak, and we're going to do the Mishnah not from the beginning. The Mishnah on Kuf Gimel Amid Beis. The Mishnah on Kuf Gimel Amid Beis. So the guys, I want to stick a number in your head, okay? I want to stick a number in your head. This number is the mean of the share. In a core has in it 30 saw. A core has in it 30 saw. Each saw has 6 kavim. So there's 180 kavim in what? In a saw. Good? 180 kavim in a saw. Okay, so now, if there are 30 saw in a, the 180 is not even what I'm going to tell you, is that if you're a quarter of a saw would be 30, a quarter of 30, or 7.5 kavim. Good? So the number that we have to work with is 7.5 kavim, right? A quarter of a saw, and this kavim is 6, so the number we're working is 7.5. A quarter to 30 is 7.5. 7.5 kavim, that's the number, okay? Once you have that number, the share will go much easier. 7.5 kavim. Says the Mishnah, Beis kur offer ani moich, and he adds moda b'chevel. I'm selling you a base kur of offer, and it's measured with a rope. You're measuring it with a rope. In other words, you're being very exact. That's what they used as a measuring device. A very device. Piches kolshu, if it's less than a kur, you knock it. Hoise kolshu yachzir. In other words, if it's less, then you deduct from the price of the value. And if it's more, then you have to add to the price of the value. Because he gave you a very exact number by saying what? However, Vim Amar, a little bit there, like the Jewish tailor, right? A little bit here, a little bit there, he just, then, Afilu Pichas Roivel Asa, or Hoysa Roivel Asa, Higil. Even if it's less than Roivel Asa, or 7.5 kavim, a roiv of a saw, right? So 7.5 kavim, or with that, then the din is done. Now, yoisamikan, if it's more than 7.5, if it's more than 7.5, then yasa cheshbin, you make a cheshbin. Now, mahu machzer loy, what does he have to? If it's more, what's he going to give to him? Mois. Again, it's very hard for such a small piece of land. What are you going to do with it? So the lekeach has to pay. He has to pay for it, right? Because it's more than 7.5. But in other words, it's what are you going to do with it? So therefore, the meicher can ask him for money. The meicher can ask him for the money of that little extra land. Again, pichas a yoser. Again, the point is 7.5. If it's a little more than 7.5, then what? Then it's nishtahi and nishtaher. But you have to compensate him. It's not. There's no mechila. 7.5 is the mechila point, guys. 7.5 is the mechila point. But now, once you get to that amount of more than 7.5 and less than 9, more than 7.5, then he can ask for money. Mahu maxlei money. He writes the maxlei karka. Okay, and if he wants to, then what? He'll accept it. They pay the karka. Why do you say that he can demand money? Is to enhance what the meicher, because again, what's he going to do with this little piece of land? So get the money and things are good. However, if you would have tishakavim, in other words, 1.5 more than a quarter is 7.5, good, and 1.5 more is 9. Now, once it's 9, guys, it's chashuv by itself, and therefore what? He can't demand cash if the lekeach wants to return the land, because 9 kavim of land is chashuv, and therefore he doesn't have to pay him cash. He can simply return the land. He can't say, you keep it and give me back cash. Once you get that point. Beis tisha kavim, ubegina beis chatzi kavim, and it's a garden, uchdiv revakiva beis roiva, machsaleyas a karka, then the lekeach can return the karka, right? V'loyas a roiva b'vadhu machser, he doesn't return only the karka, eles kol ha'maisa, or what? The extra. In other words, this is what Rav Avi said, yes, you don't return to the 7.5, you go back all the way. Okay? So again, 7.5 works well. It's a quarter of a saw. It's a quarter. A quarter is the 30 saw. A quarter of a saw. So therefore, it's 7.5. Now, iboyelahu, base course stama mai. So our Mishnah gave two cases. What, guys? Our Mishnah gave two cases. Case number one was where the guy said, "A base core I'm selling you, of offer I'm selling you, mother b'chevel, exact." The second case was what? A little bit more, a little bit less. What about if you say stam? Which one is it? Is it stam? Is it like exact? Or no, it's like a little more, a little less. What is it? So now, Iboilu, base kustomamai. Guys, you get a shaila. Which direction am I going? Am I going in the direction of exact, and therefore any little bit? Or no, you'll play 7.5 either way. Tashma. Now, using our Mishnah, base kur ofani moichlecha, mada bachevel, measured with a rope, pachas kol shehu, yinake, yesa kol shehu, yachzer. That's if you say what? Mada bachevel. Ha stama, if you say stam, and you don't mention mada bachevel, it's mashma, kehin chasa, hein yesa dami. It's mashma, no, it's the diak from the Reisha is, it's what? Only if you say Moda b'chevel are you exact. But once you don't say Moda b'chevel, then it's nishtahi and nishtaher. Ema seifa, v'im amaloi hein chasav hein yeser. If he says a little bit more, a little bit less, then afilu pichas rivalisa, then even what? If it's a 7.5, I ha'isa rivalisa, higiu, the deal is done. Hastama, but the diak is, if you didn't say chasra yasa, the stama is kamidas b'chevel dummy. It's like measuring with a rope. In other words, many times in Shas, guys, we have this, we try to make a diak from the Aresha and the Seifa, and the inference are contradictory, and we always end up with the same line. From the inference of the Mishnah, there's nothing to talk about. So again, we have a Shaila. Mishnah said case 1, case 2. Case 1, rope, exact. Case 2, nishtahi, nishtaher. What about if you don't say anything? You just say a base core. Is it similar to 1 or similar to 2? We wanted to be medayik from the Reisha that what? That the Reisha of the Mishnah, it's similar to nishtahi, nishtaher. We want to be medayik from the second case, nishtahi, nishtaher. It must be like the chevel. Eli, you can't, either way, we can't go ahead and figure out from the Mishnah what the din would be if you'd stay stam what? Stam a base core offer. Tashma. Let's try again. Let's try again to Yipaishat Shaila. Base kur of ani moichlecha. Case 1. That's a Shaila, guys. That's a Shaila. Yes. Base. I'm selling you a base core. Ki base kur of ani moichlecha. Like a base core of offer I'm selling you. Hein chaser hein yesa ani moichlecha. A little bit more, a little less. I'm selling you. Afilu piches roiva lisa. So in other words, you said 3 clauses: stama, ki offer, a little bit more, a little bit less. What's the din? Higiu, the deal's done. So we can replace shaila that it's similar to clause number 2, not clause number 1. Only mida b'chevel gets you the exact amount. So 3 clauses, and the first clause is a shaila. What do you say by stam when you say stam base kur offer? It's the same thing as saying ki offer, the same thing as saying hein chasav hein yeser, that the 7.5 kav is the dividing point. Alma, what do we see? Stamanami kein chasav hein yeser dami. That stam is the hein chasav hein yeser. Says the Gemara, you have no raya. Hasam perushe kamefarish. There we're explaining. In other words, it's not 3 separate cases. Eze base core shehi ki base. Eze base core shehi ki base core. One is a base core, like he says ki base core. Ki going to amalein chasein yesa. In other words, it's not 3 separate cases, guys. When a person says ki base core, when a person says base core, when is it like ki base core? If he adds the words. If he adds those words. Maskif law, Rav Ashi, in Cain, if you're telling me it's one case. Ani lamali. Guys, you said 3 cases. You said base off ani meichlecha, ki base off ani meichlecha, hem chasen yesa ani meichlecha. If it's speaking about one case, why do you have to say ani meichlecha ani meichlecha? It's mash from the lashon. It's three different cases. It's mash from the lashon. It's three different cases. So this question that you want to say, it's one case in Perushi Kama Farish, why would you say ani meichlecha ani meichlecha, which is mash with three separate clauses? Elolav shmamina stamenami kehin chasen yesedami shmamina. It's a good raya. It's a good raya. In other words, if the only time you can be exact if the person says measure with a chevel. If a person says I'm selling you a base core offer, you'd have the leeway of 7.5 the direction that you'll have to pay. If it's a little more, you'll have to pay. A little less, you'll make the deduction, whatever. It'll be Michael less. Okay, Mahu Machsaloi Mois. Again, why does this was the first case, right? Right? Why does we return him? Except this, the second case. If it's more or less, the deal is on, but he has to return money. So who's this in favor of? The lekeach or the meicher? Guys, this is in favor of the meicher, right? The meicher doesn't want him back such a little piece of land, and he's got to be compensated for the extra land. So what is he going to get? He's going to get money. He's going to get money. Says the Gemara, as the Mishnah said, liyapis koicha shel meicher. Aminon, liyapis koicha shel koich lo aminon. Mashma what? We look out for the meicher, and we don't look out for the lekeach. It's mashma. We look out for the meicher, and you don't look out for the lekeach, because lekeach ostensibly maybe he wants to just give him this little extra. Now he gains by having this extra land because he has another piece of land with it, right? But in other words, this is like midas sedoim, guys. By the Rashbam learns, guys. This is like no sweat off his back. In other words, what does it hurt him to give the lekeach? Right? What would it hurt? Yeah, in other words, it's he well. In other words, let's see. So now he says the following: we look out for the betterment of the meicher, not for the lekeach. But Tanya, piches shivas kavim umerza, right? Lekor, oyhoisa shivim kavim mesra. It's interesting. In the Mishnah, guys, it used the lashon of what? Of a quarter of a saw. Mm-hmm. Here it's using the bottom line, 7.5. Right? I told you it's an easy cheshbon. It's 30 quarters. It's a quarter of 30. Quarter of 30, 7.5. So now, of course, there's 30 saw in a quart. So now, this is our cheshbon, right? Guys, this is our cheshbon. And this is where the deal is on, and he has to return it. Higiyoi, the deal is done. Yoisa mikan, if it's more than 7.5, koifin es ha-moicher limchar. We go ahead and we force the moicher to sell. Besa lekeach likach, or the lekeach to buy. Now, if we're always looking out for what? The betterment of the moicher, why do we here we force the moicher to sell? Let's see Rashbam here, guys. Koifin es ha-moicher limchar. The thin lines, about 6 lines up. We force him to sell that again. It's more than 7.5. We're going to force him to sell the extra to lekeach. If lekeach wants to purchase it, again, we force the lekeach to pay. We don't say give it back because it's no sweat off his back. It's costing him money anyway. So koifal me the sedaim means if it's no sweat off your back, don't be like sedaim. Hachanami here too, where it's more. Avid rabbana takantel lekeach shei koifin es hamoichel limchar. We force the moicher to sell him the land. Ahu miyat karka kadesh leyidras eitzel sadeu. In order that what they shouldn't be tramping on his field. They tzarchli shamim imenu. We'll have to put a watchman there. And the moicher. It's so little, he doesn't get damaged by this. The halay chazi lemidi hahu porta. He can't do anything with it. He's nena. He's nena v'zeh nechasa. It's no sweat of his back. So what do you see? What's the kasha, guys? The kasher is we do force the moicha to sell. We don't always look for the betterment. We look for the betterment of like keach also. Like that we force the moicha to sell the keach, the land. Says the Gemara, no. Hasam, it's not like you thought. Hasam kigoin the have yakira meikara. The MS guys, if he wants to go ahead and keep the land, he can keep the land. We don't care. We're not looking for the betterment of the chaos. But that's if he keeps the land. You know what we force him means over here? We force him to pay less of an amount of money. When he went ahead and sold the land, the land was worth a lot of money. At this point in time, real estate has gone down. So what's he going to do? He's going to say, okay, you're going to pay me, right? Because I can't do anything with the land. Pay me the better price, correct? That's not what happens. Kaifres and Moicha to accept the lower price. But again, you can't force the Lekeach, can't force him to sell him the land. Meaning if the Moicha wants to go ahead and get money, in that case, he's going to get money for the lower price, the price now, not the old price. But not like you thought that you could, we're looking for the betterment of the chaos, right? So that's the pshat. Go down, guys, where it gets semi-wide. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines down where it gets semi-wide. Halacha mayaskinon in the Rashbam. Halacha mayaskinon kishamoicha chafetz lemachol lekech. He wants to sell it to him. Sheyachs loy b'mois, and he wants to get what? Money. Lemoicher. K'moy sheyapu chachamim koicha shlemoicher. Just like the chachamim gave him that koyach. Shemratza yachs lo lekech mois. V'hach ara have yakira meikara. Initially, it was expensive. B'shas mechir at the time of the sale. V'hash the zularas, and then it went down. But who ratzel likfeis es lekeach sheyachs loy demei hamoisa k'fi shas hayoika demei kara, and he wants what? He wants to get the better price that was initially. Behind the tani kaifin es hamoicher limchar kishas hazoil achshav. Right? He'll sell it to you at the price that it was now. That's kaifin. But again, it answers the kasha. Okay, very good. So says the Gemara. Kigoin davi yakir meikara b'zilashta, and he wants to sell him the land, and he wants to sell him at the better price. Kaifin es hamoicher to get the cheaper price.
And if it went up, you always get the low.
Now, damina le iaris yavli. If you give me land, havli kazula dahashta, you give me the price now. Okay, says the Gemara. Lahatanya kishu noisein loy, when the moicha gives the lekeach the land, noisein lo kishar shalakach mimenu, he gives it to him at the price when he bought it. Mashmo, right? Says in other words, there it's speaking where what it was initially it was cheaper and it went up in price. So what do we know? Lekeach wins in both ends over here. If Lekeach's going to get the land, he's always going to get the cheaper price. That answers your kasha. He's always going to get the cheaper price. Okay. Now, Shemshir Basada based test carbon. Now, the Mishnah had said the last in the Mishnah. However, this is if it's a little less than 7.5 or more than 7.5. But once it gets to 9, that's it. 9 is double chashuv from the atzmai, and he doesn't have to compensate him for anything, meaning he keeps the land, and he can't force him to pay cash. If he wants the land, it's a double chashuv. Now,
He takes a piece back.
well, okay. Now here's the shaila. This din in tes kavim is the din of, again, with tes kavim is 1.5 more than 7.5, right? 7.5 plus 1.5 is 9. This 9, is it a set amount only that 9, no matter how much land he sold him, or in other words, and we don't care about the quarter. A quarter is 7.5, right? A quarter is 7.5. Do we do away that completely? Once it's 9 kavim, we do away with the quarter completely, and therefore, let's say he sells him 2 quarters, 60 saw, and therefore you have 9 kavim. We don't even go after the quarter anymore, right? And 9 kavim, so this deal would still be, you'd have to return that amount. it could be double the amount because of it's 2 kurim now. No, that's one opinion. Or another opinion is no, that this ratio you keep the quarter intact. So if it's 7.5 for 1 quarter, it's 7. And now, even though the sum total will be 7.5, 7.5 will be 15. In other words, so that seems to be a machlekes. Says the Gemara. Amar Rav Huna, tes kavim sha'amru, va'afilu bika gedoyla. When it says tes kavim, it means even what? Even in a very, very large area, even a bika gedoyla, even if it's less than a quarter to less than a quarter to 6 to 30 sa, because there's so much land. So, but we don't take that into account. Once it's 9 kavim in itself, then what? Okay, that's Rav Huna. So if Huna says 9 kavim, that's it. And we don't look at a quarter. Rav Nachman Amar, noisin shiva kavim metza lechol kor v'kor. You'll always look at the ratio what of a quarter. So 9 is not going to do it, because 9 is only what in 1 core if you have 9. Once you have 2 kurayim, you don't look at 9 anymore, right? You're going to divide it out. You're going to always keep the quarter. So depending upon how much quorum is involved, you'd have to go ahead and do that. You had a difference. So Rav Huna Amar Noisin Shiva Kav Metzlachal Kor. And if the Ika Milsi Yisera, if in each core it goes up to 9, then it will be the same din. In other words, if it's a quarter, it's 7.5, and then you add it 1.5, then you'd have the same halacha of 9 core. The Ika Milsi Yisera Latisha Kavim Hadre. Then you go ahead and just little top line Rashbam. Look at this healthy Rashbam. The Ika Milsi Yisera Lates Kavim says the top line Klaimar. If you have a little bit more than the 7.5, the chol sa, the hashta leka mechila klal, he's not going to go ahead and be Michael, berevoyin, loy berevoyin, v'loy b'masreyim, kasinu, you have your karayim, the hashta, and so on and so forth, then you'll go ahead, right? And if it gets to 9 kavim, the deal will be off. Esvei Rav Nachman. Okay, now we're going to ask kashas, okay? We're going to ask kashas. Esvei Rava, now again, Rav Nachman said you go in each and every one. Okay? Esvei Rav Nachman, our Mishnah said, Shim Shir Sada base Tisha Kavim, you go ahead, you return the karka. Lav Dizavan Le Karayim. Once you have Tisha Kavim, even if it's Kurayim, it's more than 1 core, like Rav Huna and Kashan Rav Nachman. Again, no matter how much, once you get to 9 Kavim, the deal is done. It says, like, Dizavan Le Kor. Our Mishnah is it's a core, but in Achinami, if it be Kurayim, then you'd have to go after the quarter. Another kash from our Mishnah, Ubigina, where it's more chashiv, Beis Chatzi Kav, and the Gemara says Lav, right? The Zavla Sasayim, where you brought Beis Chatzi Kav to a saw, and here it's speaking even Sasayim, like Rav Huna, it's always Chatzi Kav, like it's always 9 Kavim, it's always by a Gina Chatzi Kav. Says no lie. This I saw it wasn't 2 sasayim. It was only 1 saw. Like the first case was 1 core. This case was 1 saw. Again, it's a shvach hadiyah. Yeah, but again, the Gemara does this. Rav Chodesh Shmait, so the Gemara will do it. More case, the same thing. Rabbi Akiva Beis Roiva hakav. He said Beis Roiva hakav. You return the karka. My love the zavan saw. Right, not a chatzi saw. Lie the zavan chatzi saw. So in other words, if you try to ask on Rav Nachman from my Mishnah. Is this kind kasha? Boy Ravashi, a person goes ahead and he sells the field to his friend, right? And it's extra, what? More than a quarter of a cup, more than 7.5, but it's less than 9. Good. So it's more than a half, less than 9, and therefore, what's the din? You have to go ahead and turn money. So that's a din, right? 7.5 is mechila, 9 deals off. It's like in the middle between that, you have to return money. So now, boy Ravashi, so that in this case, vinasis gina, and what happens? You turned it into a gina. So what happens? You went from 7.5 to chatzi kav, right? It was a different share. Also, or gina, you sold them a gina which is chatzi kav, and then vinasis the sadeh. So now you're shifting the differences. What's the din? Do you go according to the time of the mechira or when you return it? If you go time of mechira by gina, it's going to be more expensive. Vice versa by a field. So it's my teku, and that remains a teku.
I guess the difference this and the previous Gemara is that was over here. He physically changed it, not the before.
Previous Gemara, no, he didn't do anything. Yeah,
right, it happened on its own.
yeah. No, here he's changing the Hametzias. Here's Mitzias is changing, right? Oh no. The Brisa says, Im Hoya, it was like we said it was less than Shiva Kavim, Samach L'Sadeu. So in a case where what? If it's less than Shiva it's more a little more than 7.5. So he has to give him back money. But it's Samach L'Sadeu of the Meicher, Afilu Kolshu Machzor Karka. Okay, so guys, what's the din? If it's a little more than 7.5, then you said he has to give him cash, correct? What happens if the field is right next to the field of the Meicher? So he can't use the taina. What am I going to do with this little thing? It's connected to his field, right? So in that case, what are we going to say? Then we'll say that what Machzor Karka, the Lekeach can go ahead and return him Karka. Okay, then the Lekeach will be able to go ahead and return him Karka. So boy Ravashi, Bohu Mar Shetavsek. Let's say you have this field, and now you have a bor being mafsik between his main field and this little extra field. Amisamayi mahu. What about if it's a canal of water? Shetavsik. Derech mahu. It's a 16 amis. Richva the dikla, a hedge of palm trees mahu. Shetavsik. The Gemara says teku in all these shilas whether you're able to return the land or not. Okay. Now the last din of the Mishnah was interesting. What did it say? That when you return it, not only you return the extra, but you return the ikka part of the land. But look at the lashon of the Mishnah, guys. Look at the lashon of the Mishnah. Machzor karka, v'loyas haroiva b'lvadhu machzer. Not as does he return the extra, but ella eskol hamaiser. It really should be when you return all of it, you return the roiva, the ikka. So the Gemara asks, right? The Gemara asks right away. Klape laya. Sorry, klape laya means it doesn't make a lot of sense what you're saying. You're going in the wrong direction. You're taking the tuffle and putting it before the ikar. Says somewhere Tani in Nachinami, Tani Ravin bar Rav Nachman. He learned the mission of the following lashon. Not only does he return the extra, in other words, guys, there's 7.5, there's 30 revayin over here. So not only does he return the little extra, 31 or 32, he returns the 30 as well. Okay. All right.